Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, so the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. I am your host, as always, Seth. Today I have a friend of mine, a coach, a nomadic entrepreneur. Her name is Geri Paige, and she is the founder of the Now Experiment, a vision-based movement to help people be present in their lives, take back their time and energy, and balance what they're doing and what they're being. She's a storyteller. She has a degree in journalism. She's worked in the corporate world as a content person, all that stuff. Now she travels around. I think when we first met, she was in Costa Rica. Then we talked again. She was in Austin. Now she's in North Carolina. I'm not trying to dox you or anything, Geri, I promise. But you're all over the place, and it's fantastic. And that's, she's living the nomadic dream, which is really cool. Hey, Geri, how's it going?
Hi, Seth. Thanks so much for having me.
So you're one of the entrepreneurs that I've noticed that went like a whole not 360, a whole 180 from a base of operations. I'm sure your parents' house is always a base of operations if you need a base of operations like to get your mail. But you had a base of operations, you're working in the corporate world, you decide, I'm done. I don't want to do my own thing. Now, most people stay in the base of operations. They don't, but you're like, nah, I'm gonna travel and see the world. And I think that's like really cool that you decided you're able to do that. So how did this all get started? Who is Geri, like in a nutshell? And have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
That's such a good question. And you're right. I did have a strong foundation and a strong set of the way that things were. I had climbed the corporate ladder, head of marketing at a company that was not remote. Remote really wasn't a thing for a lot before
Yeah,
2020.
exactly.
And the thing that shifted for me, because the answer is no, I didn't always want to be an entrepreneur. I thought I wanted to be a CMO. But the thing
Oh.
that really shifted something within me is whenever I realized that I had reached a role that was near the top of the ladder of what I thought my corporate career would look like. And the way I wanted to feel didn't exist at the top of
Mm.
that ladder. And so I decided to go and do a little soul searching and went all eat, pray, love on everyone, solo backpacking in Vietnam and Bali.
Ooh.
And that's where I realized I wanna broaden the horizons of what's possible in life. And while I didn't know that entrepreneurship was gonna be it then, it's now
Yeah.
been my journey for the past 3.5 years.
Wow, 3.5 years. So you're not exactly you're an old hat at this. Not I'm not calling you old, but you know what I mean. 3.5 years traveling around, I mean, how's it been? Traveling is tough. Traveling is tiring. Just like having a base of operations can be tiring, but traveling everywhere. And I know, like, you go someplace, you don't go there for a few days. You go there for a few months, but still, so you have a base of operations for a little while, but
Yeah, so the entrepreneur life began before the nomadic life did. So I've been an entrepreneur for 3.5 years, and I'm currently on my second stint of nomad life that I've had.
ooh.
The first was in 2021 or
You
2020.
don't feel bad. It all blurs together. It
It
all
really
blurs
does all
together.
blur together. 2021 for 6 months. And to your point, I did actually get burnt out. So whenever you're thinking about traveling full time, especially if you're an introvert like me, it's really important to pay attention to your own boundaries and what you need in order to feel rooted because you don't have a home base. And so for me, what helps me feel rooted is not what I did in 2021, which is moving around every couple of weeks and
Oh
living
my god, every couple of weeks. Gee, I
every
know
couple
I'm an
weeks.
extrovert, I would've died on that.
Yes, it was a lot, and I don't even just mean cities, I mean, like, I stayed in Encinitas for 2.5 months, and I was staying, like, a week here, and then another, week or 2 here, and then, bebopped around. It was just constant movement, and so what I've
Yeah,
landed on
too
this
much.
time around is going somewhere for staying in the same place for 30 to 60 days, maybe longer if I decide, and then in between, just returning to ground at a
Yeah.
home base before I bounce out again, and that has really worked very well
Go
so
see
far.
mama. which I'm sure she loves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you know what?
Get some parent time in, which is, great. 'Cause when you own a
Yeah,
home base, they can't come visit you either, so it's like, it's up to you
yeah.
to go back and see your parents.
Yeah, I get to see my mom, I get to see my brother, my sister, the rest of my family,
That's
the
awesome.
dogs. Like, as an adult, how often do we get to spend more time with our family when we're usually so separate? So I've considered that over the past few months a gift as well to get more time.
We're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show. And then, so your next stint is gonna be back up in Boston for the foliage, which is gonna be like, which is nice because you can go up there for the foliage and then get the heck out of there before the snow.
Yes, fall is my favorite season in New England, and Boston
Oh,
is
it's
where I was
gorgeous.
for a decade. So to go back there and just
Yeah.
visit friends is and go apple picking, of course, is gonna
Oh,
be such a joy, and I think that's one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur is the freedom that we have to move around and not just to be remote, but to also manage when we're actually gonna be working so I can have the spaciousness to enjoy the parts of my
yeah.
travel that I really want to.
So what is the Now Experiment? Like, and I love it. I love the name. It seems like it's gonna be a Netflix special or something.
Thank you. You should have seen the
Manifest
list of
that. There
names.
you go.
You should have seen the list of names. There was like 80 names that I
Of
had that I was
course.
thinking about, and whenever I went through and did my due diligence on all of them, I landed on this one. So happy you like it. The Now Experiment is a company that I founded that's based on presence-based living, which is a really nuanced thing. People think it means like you're going to be a monk on a mountain somewhere and just disengage from the material world. And that's not the now
Yeah.
based living that I promote. It is a
Okay.
balance of your doing and your being such that you
Oh.
are paying attention to your present self and your future self in equal
Oh.
parts.
I like that. So, and you're not a monk on a mountain unless you wanna be a monk on a mountain.
You can be. I went to a week-long advanced meditation retreat. It was the best week of my life, and then you come back and you integrate what you learned into the world.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
that's
kind of
fun.
the approach that I use, integration.
Integration. So you already kinda answered one of my questions was what's the best thing about being an entrepreneur, but anything else to add to that?
I think pretty much everything that we do, if done with intention, is a creative act,
Mhm.
and entrepreneurship is the one of the greatest creative acts if
Mhm.
treated as such that you can
Mhm.
do in the world. And I also think it is one of the most catalytic, is that a word?
Yeah.
Sort of experiences for personal growth and transformation if you're doing it with your eyes open.
Make sure your eyes are open. If you don't, you're gonna walk into a telephone pole.
Yeah, you're gonna steamroll yourself and miss all
Oh
the many
god.
gifts that this experience has for you.
Be present essentially, yeah. So what's the scariest thing about being an entrepreneur, especially when you're on the road, being an entrepreneur?
I think the answer to this question is different for everyone
Yeah.
because what a lot of people don't realize is that the path of entrepreneurship is in some way the path of your shadows and what you carry within you. There's no world in which entrepreneurship and your own internal growth and transformation shadows don't completely coexist and weave
Mhm.
in together. So to walk one path is to walk the other if you're doing it well. So for me
Yeah.
personally, it's the being seen. Yeah, the constantly putting myself out there for rejection and critique and all the
Yeah.
things. And I've been doing it for 3.5 years, but and it hasn't necessarily gotten any easier over time. It's just how I
It doesn't
navigate.
it gets different. It's different every year.
It's different. Yeah.
It's wild, yeah. So what's the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
Like physically?
It can be both. Well, for you, it could be physically like a suitcase, but or if you metaphysical, you can go as deep as you wanna go with this. You can go both ways. You can go physical and woo.
I'm gonna say the most important thing to carry with you all times is a remembering. Yeah, a
Oh, I love that.
remembering of who at your core you are and what ultimately in the grand scheme of things matters.
I love that.
Mhm.
Well, that was good. That was good. I like that. I love how people come up with this question. Some people go like surfacey with their phone. Some people go surfacey with their phone and then go really deep about why they chose their phone, and it's just like, whoa, okay. And some people go like metaphysical, and I mean, it's great. I love that question. Um, so what is your mode of, like, when you're on the ground, do you just you park yourself and then you just take Ubers everywhere? Like, how do you navigate these different locations?
Mm.
Austin's similar to North Carolina, it's similar to Boston, but Costa Rica is a completely different country for crying out loud.
This is an especially fun question for me because I haven't driven in 10 years.
Oh, wow. So maybe don't give you the keys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a liability, me on the road at this point, but I still have a functioning license, which is
You
hilarious.
need to, yeah.
Yeah, in Boston, I just didn't need a car, but everywhere
Mm,
I've traveled, it has always worked out.
wow.
Ubers ends up being a lot cheaper if you think about it. We're programmed to think having a car is the way to go, but it actually ends up being with car insurance and payments cheaper to Uber places.
Wow.
Also, like, I'll often have a friend or make friends on the ground. I go to these co-living, co-working communities and make
Oh,
friends there. And then there's always like trains, and I don't know, I just always find a way.
you find a way. That's kind of the way of being an entrepreneur and being a nomad is
Yeah.
finding a way to make things work, and sometimes you take a step back, you're like, "Wait, that wasn't exactly the best way to go about that. Alright, let's change, let's pivot."
Exactly. There are parallels there for sure. It's problem solving outside of the ladder and the box of what we're taught to follow.
It's actually double problem solving. You're problem solving for the business and you're problem solving for life because when you're in Costa Rica, you need to problem solve just for your general life for the day.
Oh
It's pretty
yeah, and
wild.
the transportation in Costa Rica was like a plane to another plane to a van to a ferry to another van. I mean, it was just wild.
And then you finally get out, you're like, "I made it."
Yeah, like 11
And then
hours
2 months
later.
later, you're like, "Oh, I gotta do this." I remember watching your Instagram, and we'll put that in the show notes, but your Instagram stories about you're like, "I'm on another plane. I'm on a bus. I'm on another plane. I'm in the United States, thank God I can actually just take one mode of transportation now. Oh, I can't. I have to take this bus, this cab." I'm like, "It's crazy." You're a fun watch on Instagram, I can say that. You're definitely
Oh,
like,
thank you.
where is Geri now? It's like, we're in Carmen San Diego. It's like, where's Geri? Like, where is she now? She's galvanizing over here, she's over there now. It's great. Like, and for people like me who are have our home base, it's nice to see the people how different people live. And
Mm.
they, and and just because you're doing this now doesn't mean you're not gonna have a version 3 at some point. Get a home base for a little bit, take a break, and then do it again. You can do this. It's kind of nice to do that, especially when you're an entrepreneur because you don't have to answer to anybody except for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that that is what freedom ultimately is being able to decide anew for yourself, whatever that is. Because I know that
Yeah,
things will change. One day I'll get sick of this probably, or maybe I won't, I don't know. And I'll ground it. Maybe there will be a different version of entrepreneurship for myself, or maybe I won't want to be an entrepreneur anymore. I think that real freedom is like not overly attaching yourself to any specific path.
I love that. Oh man, you're dropping knowledge bombs left and right, Jerry. So now speaking about places, where's your favorite watering hole online? Where do you hang out the most?
I would say I probably spend the majority of my time on Instagram because it's where I create the most.
I thought you're
Um,
living a very visual life.
yeah, yeah. But maybe second to that, I spend a lot of time in my notes app because that's where I
Oh,
write.
really?
And
Right. And try not to walk in the fountains, right, as you're writing.
well, I use notes for everything. I think that there's so many different like task management systems and things out there, but I found
People
it
say
that
that they like that Steve Jobs did a good job on the Notes app.
yeah, it's just simplicity. I don't have to like manage. It's like a full-time job managing a tool sometimes. And so I plop it in
Notion.
and
Yeah.
it's a Notion. I tried Notion for a second and I was like, this is a full-time job to manage this tool for me
I
personally.
use Notion for 3 things for the podcast, and that's it. I
Hmm.
pay for the premium version, but I'm like, because I need something that the premium version gives me.
Yeah.
But, like, our friend Sarah, who's in Jay Klaus's group, is a
Yeah.
Notion certified expert, and she's like, "I could do this, and this, and this." I'm like, "What?"
Brain
It's a
explodes.
exactly. It's like, "Hey, if your brain works that way, go for it." And
Yeah.
she runs her whole business through Notion, and I'm like, "I don't know how to do that." She has her invoicing through Notion, I'm like, "Wow." For me, I'm like, "I need separate tools. I need this, like, this tool does this. I don't wanna build something. I want it to just be that thing." So,
Yeah. It's beautiful. There's so many options out there. For me personally, it's just That notes app, man, and that's where I do a lot of my writing, so I spend time there too.
And does it back up now? I think it backs up to the cloud now, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. If it didn't,
Yeah.
I would probably have
Yeah, but the same, like, you
television
better make sure the
anxiety.
thing backs up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So you're at Geri Paige, so GeriPaige on Instagram. Pretty much both you up you come up. Look you
Mhm.
up on LinkedIn, you come up. So that works. Um, and it's now experiment, thenowexperiment.com/subscribe for the newsletter. So that's exciting. And you have a podcast too. Let's not forget about the podcast.
I do. The podcast is called Abundantly Curious,
I
and
like
it's
it.
a bit separate from my coaching work. It's for fun. So I kind of just post whenever I want because I'm not hell bent on growing it, but I enjoy it whenever I do publish.
It's fun. You get a little dose of Jerry every now and then. It's
Yeah.
fun. So Jerry, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad we got you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great chat.
And we'll see everyone next time. That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneurs Enigma, please review us in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps other podcast listeners find our show. If you're looking for other podcasts in the marketing space, look no further than the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.